The tourists at the Great Sphinx didn't run because they saw a ghost. They ran because the ghost looked at its reflection in a smartphone held by a teenager and screamed in a language that died 4,000 years ago. It lasted only 3 seconds. A flickering, translucent figure dressed in linen that shimmered like heat haze against the ancient limestone. When the figure vanished, the air left behind was 30 degrees colder than the Egyptian sun should allow. This was not a haunting in the traditional sense. It was a visual collision, a jagged tear in the fabric of what we perceive as the present moment. We are taught that time is a river, flowing relentlessly in one direction. But at the world's most ancient sites, the river is beginning to flood its banks. Archaeology has always been about unearthing the dead, but a new, unspoken discipline is emerging among those who work in the shadows of the Great Pyramids, or the vine-choked corridors of Angkor Wat. They call it Holographic Archaeology. It is the study of temporal residue, based on the theory that high-energy environments or specific geometric structures act as a natural recording medium for human history. For decades, these sightings were dismissed as heat exhaustion or mass hysteria. However, as our own digital recording technology becomes more sophisticated, we are capturing things that should not exist. We are seeing figures in Roman tunics, walking through the basements of modern museums and witnessing the construction of monoliths in real time through the lens of a high-speed infrared camera. The question is no longer whether these images are real, but why they are suddenly becoming more frequent and more vivid. Some researchers suggest that the Earth's magnetic field, which acts as a sort of hard drive for these historical imprints, is thinning. As the barrier weakens, the past is bleeding into the present. It starts with a shimmer in the air, a localized distortion of light that mimics the properties of a modern hologram. You might be standing in a quiet corner of a cathedral or a stone circle, and for a fleeting second, the modern world retreats. The sounds of traffic are replaced by the rhythmic chipping of flint or the low hum of a forgotten chant. You aren't just seeing the past. You are standing in the middle of a data leak from another century. There is a documented case from a remote excavation site in the high Andes where a team of surveyors found themselves surrounded by the sounds of a bustling marketplace. There was no one there, yet the thermal cameras picked up dozens of humanoid heat signatures moving in coordinated patterns. The team described the sensation as being a ghost in someone else's world. The most unsettling part of these encounters is the realization that the figures in these leaks often seem to notice us. They stop their work. They look toward the camera. They point at our modern clothing with expressions of profound confusion. This suggests that the leakage is bidirectional. If we are seeing their world as a holographic projection, they are seeing ours as a spectral intrusion. This phenomenon challenges the very foundation of our reality. If the past can be replayed like a recorded file, does that mean every action we take is being etched into the stone beneath our feet? The dark side of this theory implies that we are living in a world that is never truly private. We are walking through layers of accumulated time, stepping through the translucent lives of billions who came before us. In places like the Valley of the Kings, the density of these recordings is said to be so thick that it causes physical nausea and a sense of being watched by 10,000 eyes. Some sensitive instruments have even picked up echoes of future events, suggesting that the holographic nature of time doesn't just look backward, but represents a complete map of every moment that ever was and ever will be. Consider the possibility that the great monuments of antiquity weren't just tombs or temples, but sophisticated storage devices designed to anchor the timeline. The precision of the stonework, the alignment with the stars, and the use of conductive materials like quartz-rich granite suggest a technology we are only beginning to grasp. These sites might be the servers of human history. When we visit them, we are essentially plugging into a massive, ancient network. But the network is glitching. The images are stuttering. We see Roman legionnaires in the middle of a London street, their faces contorted in a silent, eternal march, unaware that the ground they are walking on is now 10 feet below the modern pavement. The implications for our understanding of the soul and consciousness are staggering. If a person's image and voice can be preserved for millennia in the molecular structure of a stone wall, what does that say about the nature of the self? Are these ghosts conscious, or are they merely playback loops triggered by certain atmospheric conditions? Some theorists argue that a sufficiently powerful emotional event, a moment of great collective joy or intense sorrow, creates a burn-in effect on the environment. This would explain why so many holographic leaks center around scenes of ritual, conflict, or massive construction. We are seeing the moments when the human spirit was at its most intense, vibrating at a frequency that the physical world couldn't help but record. In the late 1990s, a group of independent researchers claimed to have captured a sequence of images at a site in Turkey that showed a group of people using tools that appeared to be made of light. The footage was never officially released, but descriptions of it have circulated in the underground scientific community for years. The figures didn't look like primitive humans. They looked like us, but with a grace and a command over their environment that we have lost. The theory arose that these weren't people from the past at all, but a leak from a timeline where human development took a different path. This introduces the idea of the multiverse not as a distant mathematical concept, but as something that is physically overlapping with our own living rooms. As we move further into the 21st century, the frequency of these glitches in the matrix is increasing. Some believe it is due to our own technological output, the massive amount of radio waves, Wi-Fi, and satellite signals we are pumping into the atmosphere. This electromagnetic noise might be interacting with the Earth's natural recording system, causing the files to fragment and play back at random. We are effectively dousing a delicate antique in high-voltage electricity. The result is a chaotic blending of eras. People report seeing Victorian carriages on modern highways or hearing the clashing of swords in empty fields where battles were fought centuries ago. The danger of holographic archaeology is not in the images themselves, but in the instability they represent. If the past is becoming more visible, it means the boundary between then and now is dissolving. What happens when the projection becomes solid? There are unverified reports of displaced objects, artifacts appearing in modern settings out of thin air, only to vanish minutes later. A bronze coin on a kitchen table, a spearhead embedded in a drywall. These are the physical manifestations of a timeline that is losing its integrity. We are living on the surface of a bubble that is beginning to crack, and the air from the outside is rushing in. Scientists who study these anomalies often suffer from a specific type of psychological strain. They begin to lose their sense of chronological grounding. If you spend your days watching the construction of the Parthenon through a specialized lens, the modern world begins to feel like the illusion. You start to see the people around you, your neighbors, your family, as potential holograms. The solidity of the present is exposed as a fragile consensus. We all agree it is the present because we are all seeing the same thing, but as soon as the past starts to intrude, that consensus breaks down. You are no longer a citizen of a specific year. You are a passenger on a ship that is taking on water from every century at once. There is a hush that falls over these ancient sites at dusk, a time when the light hits the stone at just the right angle to reveal the ghosts of the architecture. You might see a doorway where there is only a flat wall, or a staircase leading into the empty sky. These are the blueprints of the past, still lingering in the air. If you walk through them, you might feel a slight resistance, a tingling on the skin like static electricity. This is the physical sensation of moving through a high-density data field. We are literally walking through the memories of the Earth. The question remains, who or what is managing this data? Is the holographic nature of our reality a natural byproduct of the universe's physics, or is it a designed feature? Some ancient texts speak of the Akashic Records, a celestial library that contains every word and action ever taken. Perhaps the ancient architects knew how to access this library and built their monuments as terminals. If that is the case, our current leaks might be a sign that the system is failing or being rebooted. We are seeing the fragments of the hard drive as it attempts to repair itself. As we continue to dig, we are finding more than just bones and pottery. We are finding the echoes of ourselves. In a deep excavation in northern Europe, a team recently found a series of cave paintings that were not made with pigment, but with a substance that only becomes visible when exposed to specific frequencies of ultraviolet light. The paintings depict scenes of modern cities, including recognizable skylines, but they are dated to over 10,000 years ago. This is the ultimate paradox of holographic archaeology. Is it a leak from the past, or a warning from a future that has already happened? We are entering an era where history is no longer a static thing found in books. It is a living, breathing, and occasionally terrifying presence that shares our space. We must learn to navigate a world where the person standing next to us at a museum might have died 3 centuries ago. We must accept that our own lives are being recorded into the very air we breathe, to be replayed for some future observer who will look at our primitive technology with the same confusion and awe. There is a peculiar loneliness in this discovery. When you see a figure from the 14th century leaning against a wall in a modern subway station, you realize that they are just as lost as you are. They are caught in a loop of time, performing an action that has no meaning in our world. Just as our daily commutes might look like a strange, repetitive ritual to someone watching from the year 3000. It suggests that our presence on this planet is temporary, but our imprint is permanent. We are leaving behind a digital and spiritual wake that will never truly settle. The technology used to track these leaks is becoming more accessible. Apps are being developed that claim to tune into the specific magnetic frequencies of the past, allowing amateur enthusiasts to go ghost hunting for historical data.
Get a picture quick.
While many of these are hoaxes, the sheer volume of unexplained footage being uploaded to the internet is staggering. We are seeing high-definition clips of the Great Fire of London, the signing of ancient treaties, and the mundane lives of people whose names have been forgotten by history. These aren't just shadows. They are high-fidelity reconstructions of a reality that refused to be deleted. Some governments have reportedly established temporal containment zones around certain monuments. These are areas where the leakage is so severe that it interferes with the modern navigation systems and communications. Pilots flying over certain parts of the Gobi Desert or the jungles of Central America have reported seeing cities that shouldn't exist, glowing with an internal light that doesn't show up on satellite imagery. The official explanation is usually atmospheric interference or secret military testing, but those who study the holographic theory know better. They know that the past is asserting its right to exist in the present. The lights in the sky, the shadows in the ruins, the voices in the wind, they are not figments of our imagination. They are the artifacts of a temporal leak that is growing wider every day. We are not just observers of history. We are participants in a grand holographic drama that spans the entirety of time. And as the barriers continue to thin, we may find that the most frightening thing about the past isn't that it's dead, but that it's still here, watching us, waiting for its turn to become real again. The next time you visit an ancient site, pay close attention to the corners of your vision. Don't look at the monuments, look look at the space between them. You might catch a glimpse of a figure that shouldn't be there, or a building that hasn't existed for 1,000 years. And if that figure turns to look at you, don't be surprised if they look just as terrified as you are. Because in the world of holographic archaeology, the past is just a leak away, and the present is much thinner than we ever dared to believe. We must consider the ethical weight of this phenomenon. If we can see them, and they can see us, do we have a responsibility to the people of the past? Does the act of observing a leak change the data being recorded?
Reach the gate.
Some physicists argue that the very act of looking at these holographic projections is what causes them to stabilize. By witnessing the past, we are reinforcing it, making it more likely to bleed through again. We are the architects of our own hauntings. We are feeding the ghosts with our attention. The river of time is not just flooding, it is turning into an ocean, and we are all treading water in the deep. We are all just flickering images in a vast, ancient projector, waiting for the light to eventually fade. Until then, we share the stage with everyone who has ever lived. A crowded, beautiful, and haunting collision of timelines that we call reality. We are the data, the recording, and the observer, all at once. And as the cycle continues, the images will only grow clearer until one day, the projection and the reality become one.